This presentation will be on annotated bibliographies. I'm going to do a little bit different in that there is a really cool, very short video that gives kind of an introduction to annotated bibliographies. So I'm going to have that play, and then I will go back and kind of review some important points for that. So for now, just enjoy that video.
Welcome to the Wishart Library online tutorial series at Algoma University. In this tutorial, we'll look at how to write an annotated bibliography. So what is an annotated bibliography? Many professors include an assignment for an annotated bibliography as part of their coursework. Like any other bibliography, an annotated bibliography provides citations to books, journal articles, and other materials such as trade publications, government documents, archival materials, and so forth. However, unlike other bibliographies, an annotated bibliography contains annotations. An annotation is a short paragraph that provides additional information about the source being cited. These annotations are descriptive and critical. They present the strengths and weaknesses of the source being cited. They comment on the relevance of the source to the field, and usually contain a rationale for their inclusion in your bibliography. For example, you might include a source because it presents an alternative approach to that of another author used in your paper. In terms of their length, they are typically 125 to 250 words in length, or no more than one paragraph. So what is the difference between an annotation and an abstract? Abstracts are summaries of a source, and they also tend to be in that 125 to 250 word length. Generally, you'll find an abstract for a journal article in a scholarly database or at the very beginning of an article. Abstracts are typically written by the author, so they are not critical of the source. Students who rely heavily on abstracts to write their annotations run the risk of being accused of plagiarism, since paraphrasing an abstract is a form of plagiarism, and it's one that's very easy to spot. In order to avoid such charges, students should read the article through first and write their annotation on the basis of their own assessment of that source. So why write an annotated bibliography? It's true that annotated bibliographies require a great deal of effort, but they serve a purpose. Annotated bibliographies let others know what the key sources are on a particular topic, and by conducting your research early on, you have an opportunity to review the literature and see how different sources will fit together to shape your final research paper. If you only do a quick literature search without doing a review of the individual sources, you may not realize what your sources actually contain until it's too late in the research process. Your annotations should guide you as you conduct your research because they'll let you know early on where the gaps lie. So where to begin your research? Why not at the library? You can start with the subject guides available on the library website, visit us in person at the reference desk, send us an email at reference@algomau.ca, or chat with us online at Ask Algoma. You can also call us at 705-949-2301, extension 4619. The staff at the Wishart Library are always happy to help, so let us know how we can be of assistance to you in your research.
Now, I think you could reasonably ask, why watch a video about an annotated bibliography and then talk about it some more, right? And there's a couple of reasons I want to do that. First of all, there are some things I want to highlight, but also I think students often kind of struggle with the annotated bibliography. I think it's one of the assignments that people tend to phone in the most. And by that, I just mean not really take it that seriously, just kind of throw something together. And the problem is that really will hurt you in the long run, because what will end up happening is if you don't take this really seriously to begin with, you don't find good sources, and then you start looking at them and you don't realize until kind of too late that, oh, I don't have good sources. Now my paper is going to suffer. So it's really important that you take time to really do this well. So the annotated bibliography, in a sense, has two basic parts. The first part is that you need to provide a citation in Chicago-style format for each of the sources you're going to be using. And then beneath each citation, you need to provide a paragraph of between 250 to 500 words in length for each source. And there are, I think, four basic things you need to talk about. You need to describe the source, right? What is the source about? Who is the author? That sort of thing. You also need to say what information the source is going to provide. Now, you don't have to give me every single piece of information, but you need to say, okay, this is going to give me the diplomatic background that is so necessary for my paper, or something like that. In addition, you need to note what the basic argument the source is making. If it is a scholarly article or textbook or a monograph or anything like that, you need to be very, very clear about what this source is trying to convince you of, right? Typically a monograph, a journal article, and sometimes even a textbook is trying to convince you to see the subject in a certain way. And if you don't understand that argument, you can't assess it, right? You can't understand the source and decide whether or not the source is a good one. In addition, and lastly, you need to explain how will this argument and information help you in your research. So you don't want to just like copy down what's on the dust jacket or something like that. You don't want to just copy the abstract, as they said there in the case of a journal article. You need to actually understand this stuff. If you understand it and you say, oh, this source is not going to work, great, you eliminate a source, find something else. But it's key that you include these 4 elements, right? And you take this really seriously, because once you do, it'll make your research a snap. It's one of those things you got to invest in the front end. In the back end, it really pays off. Now, for the assignment, you need at least 3 secondary sources. And in many ways, that's not that many. But remember, I want you not so much to read extensively, I want you to read intensely. So these sources need to be very, very closely connected to what you're looking at, right? They need to be things that don't just give you information, but that provide you with arguments that you will engage with. And therefore, they should be recent, right? You know, if you are referring to secondary sources about the Korean War from the 1960s, that's kind of a problem, right? Because there's been so much more written recently, right? If you rely on a book about American missionaries in Korea from the 1980s, there's stuff that's been printed in just the last few years. And I'll say, well, why aren't you referring to this? So they should be only 3, but they should be really good, right? At least one should be a peer-reviewed journal article or book chapter from an edited volume published by a university press, right? So you need at least one journal article or book chapter from an edited volume published by a university press. No, that's not a chapter from a single author book, right? It has to be an edited volume where you have a separate editor, and then you have different chapters written by different academics. And at least one of your sources should be a book, this is a monograph, published by a university press. Students sometimes use novel to refer to any book, which is kind of surprising me. A novel is a work of fiction. A monograph is an academic book focused on a single subject. So at least one of your sources should be a book published by a university press, which would qualify as a monograph. No more than one can be a general history textbook. And I put some general Korean history textbooks on reserve at the library. This would be something like, the history of Korean. It's a broad survey of Korean history. You could have one of those, but you can't have 3 of them, right? You can't have 2 of them, only one at most. Because remember here, the purpose is to get you ready to prepare you for your research by finding good sources that you'll be able to engage with, that you'll be able to get the necessary background information from, right? And if you don't do that up front, your research is going to be that much harder to complete later on. You won't be able to write a good paper.